بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, we had covered last week regarding the difficulties that the Muslims had faced in Makkah Mukarramah, all of the sanctions, the boycotts, the beatings, the torture, all of those things took place. And still too, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His nizam and His system, the divine decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was such that even though the disbelievers, they tried as much as they could, they did everything that was in their capabilities, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was still bringing people from outside of Makkah to accept Islam. And we talked about what happened with Sayyidina Abu Dhar Ghifari radiyallahu anhu. We talked about Al-Tufayl bin Amr al-Dawsi radiyallahu anhu, and all of these different companions that were coming in from outside. After this, the most difficult year in the life of the Prophet alayhi salam, which is called Amul Huzn, and we talked about this last week, the year of grief, the year of sadness in the life of the Prophet alayhi salam. And quick pop quiz for you guys. Who remembers why was it called Amul Huzn? Why was it called the year of grief? What happened in this year that caused so much sadness and pain to the Prophet alayhi salam? Yes, one of them. So one was his beloved wife and our respected mother, Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. She passed away in this year. And of course, remember we talked about how Khadija radiyallahu anha, she supported the Prophet alayhi salam so much. So when she was gone, it became very difficult for the Prophet alayhi salam. And a second thing happened also in Amul Huzn, the year of grief. Yes? Anyone? Say it out loud, inshallah. The uncle of the Prophet alayhi salam, Abu Talib, who was very influential in protecting the Prophet alayhi salam, he had passed away also. So two deaths in the same year, very, very close to each other. Within 3 or 4 months, both demises took place, and it became very, very difficult for the Prophet ﷺ. The whole year was called Amul Huzn. And we know the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that inna ma'al usri yusra. That indeed with difficulty there comes ease. This is the way that Allah made this world. There are days of sadness where you have to endure with patience, with sabr. And then there are days of happiness where Allah gives you good times as well. So when you're in good times, don't enjoy so much that you forget about the bad times, and the reality of this world is that this life is temporary. And similarly, when you're going through difficult times, don't become so despondent and hopeless, and you become so much into depression that you forget there are also good times in life. There's also akhirah, there's Jannah inshallah. There's a lot of good things that we could look forward to as well. The path of moderation, i'tidal. This is what the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. So you had Amul Huzn, you had the year of grief, 2 deaths, extreme sadness, extreme pain for the Prophet ﷺ. And right after Amul Huzn took place one of the greatest gifts that the Prophet ﷺ had received in his entire lifetime. That was the gift of the Isra and Mi'raj. Right after Amul Huzn, according to many of the ulama of Seerah. Which means that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was taken from Makkah, from Al-Masjid al-Haram, right near the Kaaba. He was taken from there, and in one single night, he was taken all the way to Jerusalem, to Baytul Maqdis, where the Prophet ﷺ, he led all of the Anbiya, all of the Prophets, he led them in Salah, and eventually from there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him up all the way to Jannah, the night ascension as they call it. And subhanallah, in the Quran Kareem, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the Isra and the Mi'raj, the words He uses, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-harami ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlahu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran when He talks about Isra and Mi'raj, pure and glorified be Allah, that being who did what? who took his servant, who took his slave, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Subhanallah. Of all of the words that could have been used to describe the Prophet alayhi salam, which word did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use? Here he didn't say binabiyihi, that he took his nabi, that he took his rasul. No, he said he took his abd, his servant, his slave. This shows us, respected listeners, that the nobility of insan, the dignity of insan, the most respected position that you could be in is in a position of abdiyat, a position of being a servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So externally, apparently, you know, somebody from outside looks at a Muslim and they're doing ibadah, they're in sajda. So externally it looks like what? It looks like a humiliating position. Your forehead is on the ground, you're in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Apparently it looks like it's not izzah, it's not dignity. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies, the most dignified position of an insan is to be a servant of Allah. The lower you are to the ground, the more submissive you are to Allah, the greater your honor and dignity in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He took Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from Al-Masjid al-Haram, took him all the way in one night to Baytul Muqaddas, or Baytul Maqdis as they say, which is Jerusalem. And many of us, we know the story. I'm not going to go into too much details. The Prophet alayhi salam, he sat on the buraq, which was a special animal, which would go through very, very fast distances, very, very large span of land. The buraq would take in a very, very short amount of time. So the Prophet alayhi salam sat on this buraq all the way to Baytul Maqdis, and from there he tied up the buraq to a rock and he went up to Jannah. And subhanallah, many things happened in this journey. How the Prophet alayhi salam, he went from one Jannah, one level of the sky to the next. And in each level of the heavens, the Prophet alayhi salam, he met with different prophets. He met with different anbiya. So in the first heaven, the Prophet alayhi salam, he met with Adam alayhi salam. And he spoke with Adam alayhi salam. And the second heaven, he met with Yahya and Isa alayhimus salam. Third heaven, Yusuf. Fourth heaven, Idris alayhi salam. Fifth, Harun. Sixth, Musa alayhi salam. And finally in the seventh, he met with Ibrahim alayhi salam. And subhanallah, with each prophet that he would meet, they would welcome him. Marhaban bil akhi salih wan nabiy salih. Welcome and greetings to our pious brother and to the pious Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allahu Akbar. Each prophet that he met, they testified to the piety of the Prophet alayhi salam, and they also testified to the nubuwah, to the prophethood of the Prophet alayhi salam. In every heaven as the Prophet alayhi salam went. It was also in this mi'raj where the Prophet alayhi salam was presented with two things. He was presented with milk and he was presented with alcohol. Take whichever of the two which you please. And of the two, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he selected the milk, which shows the inner nature of the Prophet alayhi salam always gravitated towards purity. It always inclined towards that which is pure. And the angel Jibreel alayhi salam told the Prophet alayhi salam, had you selected the wine, had you selected the alcohol, لَغَوَتْ أُمَّتُكَ, your ummah would have gone astray. But from the purity of the Prophet alayhi salam, the ummah has also, alhamdulillah, been kept on the straight path. Eventually, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he went to the Sidratul Muntaha, which is a tree which is in the furthest boundary. It is so far that any other creation, they would be burned to ashes if they go towards the Sidratul Muntaha. This is the furthest point which any creation could reach. The Prophet ﷺ, he made it all the way to the Sidratul Muntaha. And finally, with the seventh heaven, above the seventh heaven, there's another place over there. And that is what is called Al-Baytul Ma'mur. This is a place which is completely in line with the Kaaba. So where the Kaaba is now, directly above, going all the way into the heavens, there's a place called Al-Baytul Ma'mur. And subhanallah, just like in the Kaaba, on earth, we have human beings that make tawaf. Right? We make tawaf, we glorify Allah, Hajj and Umrah. The Baytul Ma'mur in the heavens, every single day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has mentioned, 70,000 angels, they make tawaf of the Bayt Ma'mur. Every single day. And each of these angels, once they make tawaf of Bayt Ma'mur once, they are never ever given the opportunity to do this tawaf again. So Allahu Akbar, that means literally every single day, a new 70,000 angels, they're making tawaf of the Bayt Ma'mur. Subhanallah. Imagine how insignificant we are. We think if you do a salah, we're doing a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'udhu billah. We think if we go for Hajj, we've done a favor to Islam, we've done a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. Wallahi, every ibadah that we do is for our own benefit. It's a favor for ourselves. Allah doesn't need us. Allah doesn't need our ibadat. Allah doesn't need us to make sajda. There are angels that literally, for thousands of years, they'll be in sajda. For thousands of years, they'll be in ruku. For thousands of years, they'll stand in qiyam. And every single day, 70,000, they'll make tawaf of the Bayt Ma'mur. When the Prophet ﷺ was on the Isra and the Mi'raj, he also saw the bounties of Jannah, and he was also exposed to the punishments of Jahannam. And the accounts are mentioned there. The people who eat riba, the people who eat interest, what type of punishments were happening to them. The people that tell lies, what type of punishments happen to them. People who learn the Quran and then they forget it and they don't act upon its rulings, what happens to them? Each of these people, the Prophet ﷺ, he saw different punishments that were happening to them. People that are engaged in illicit relationships and illicit type of intercourse, the punishments for them, all of these things, they were exposed to the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw firsthand what exactly was happening to these people. The interesting thing about the Isra and Mi'raj, when the Prophet ﷺ came back and he announced to the people that this is what happened last night, I went from Makkah, I went all the way to Baytul Maqdis. The mushrikeen, immediately they started laughing. They said, look, oh Muslims, look at your Prophet. You calling this man a prophet? Na'udhu billah. You're calling him a prophet. He's saying in one night, he went all the way from Makkah to Jerusalem. And you guys know, to get from Makkah to Jerusalem on a camel or on a horse or whatever you're riding, it's not going to happen in one night. It's going to take you a long time. And look, your Prophet is saying it happened in one night. And they were laughing, they were joking, they were making fun. And one of these groups of mushrikeen, they came to Abu Bakr, radiyallahu anhu. And they said, oh Abu Bakr, your Prophet is saying this. And they're laughing and they're making fun and they're joking. They said, you know your Prophet is saying this now? Abu Bakr, radiyallahu anhu, the first thing he said, if this is what the Nabi of Allah has said, I believe it without any hesitation. Because we have believed from him that which is even more intense than him going to Makkah to Jerusalem. We believe that the revelation from the heavens, from Allah, comes and descends upon this Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have believed something which is much more intense. For him to say that he went from Makkah to Jerusalem, this is a small thing. Of course we believe in this. And subhanallah, they mention that because Abu Bakr Siddeeq radiyallahu anhu, right away without any hesitation, he believed in the Isra and Mi'raj. From this incident, he was given the title As-Siddeeq, the one who declares as truthful. Because right away he believed the Prophet ﷺ. Now when the Prophet ﷺ came back, he told the people of Makkah, you don't believe me? I will tell you everything about Baytul Maqdis. What it looks like. What happened when I was there. What the entrance looks like. What is surrounding the area of Baytul Maqdis. And he said, when I was going, I also came to know some of the caravans that were passing on the way. Subhanallah. Because, of course, there are always people traveling back and forth They would go to Syria, they would go towards Jerusalem, they would go to different places. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he informed the Quraysh, there was such a caravan from so-and-so place, such a caravan from so-and-so place. Your animals that were lost, I saw them on the road, they're coming from so-and-so place. The Prophet ﷺ was giving them the full details of everything that's on the way. And subhanallah, in just a few days, what happened? Every caravan that the Prophet ﷺ spoke about, those caravans came back. And exactly as the Prophet ﷺ said, it turned out to be exactly true as he said. Right? SubhanAllah. Like imagine if I'm going on a journey right now, and let's say, I don't know, I stop in Richmond, and I say, okay, in Richmond, I saw there was a group of people, they were headed towards Tracy, for example. And then later on, we find out that exact caravan, they say, what? Someone said they met us in Richmond? Yeah, we were there in Richmond, and we were headed towards Tracy. Right? So now that caravan comes and tells you, you'll know that I was telling the truth. Because I met that caravan, I talked to them, I sat with them. And subhanAllah, every caravan that the Prophet ﷺ talked about, it all turned out to be exactly true. So this shows us the truthfulness and the honesty of the Prophet ﷺ when it came to the account of the Isra and the Mi'raj. Now, respected listeners, in Makkah Mukarramah, you still had the same situation. Lots of torture, lots of persecution. People are in a very, very difficult position as they're living in Makkah Mukarramah. What happened in this case? The Prophet ﷺ, as we mentioned before, lots of people from outside, they started coming in and they started accepting Islam. One such caravan came to Makkah, they came for Hajj. And we mentioned before, the mushrikeen, the non-Muslims, the disbelievers, they would also do Hajj at that time. It was part of their rituals. So a group came for Hajj, they came all the way from Medina. When they came from Medina, the Prophet ﷺ gave them da'wah, he recited the Quran to them, and they accepted Islam. And during this occasion, there was a large number of them that came, a delegation of 70 people. That's a big number that came from outside. 70 of them, they came and they accepted Islam. And as they came, of course, the one thing that's in their mind, they want to spend time with the Prophet ﷺ. They want to sit with him, they want to see him, they want to talk to him, they want to benefit from him. But the atmosphere right now, politically, is not allowing that. Because there's no freedom. The Muslims are practicing in secret. Always going to Darul Arqam, always going in private. They cannot openly meet with the Prophet ﷺ. So eventually, they made a meeting and they said, at nighttime, at so-and-so location, you guys can come and you can meet with the Prophet ﷺ. So all 70 of them came at nighttime and they sat down with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they gave their bay'ah. They gave their allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ. Now understand one thing, respected listeners, that at this time, there's 70 of these people, and the oath which they're about to give, it's a very, very heavy oath. Because these are residents of Medina Munawwara. They live all the way in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ is all the way here in Mecca. So Abbas radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, when these people were about to take the pledge, they were about to take the bay'ah, Abbas stopped everyone. And he said, listen, O people of Yathrib. Yathrib was another name for Medina. He said, listen, O people of Medina, O people of Yathrib. Know very well what you're getting yourselves into. Think about this treaty, think about this pact, think about this allegiance. Think carefully about this bay'ah that you're going to do. Because you have to understand what it demands. It's gonna demand, you may have to give your life. It's going to demand, your family may betray you. Your parents may disown you. Your tribes may kick you out. There's a lot of difficulty that can come with this allegiance. So, O people of Medina, I'm warning you now. If you're gonna abandon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, If eventually you will surrender him and you're going to give up, don't take the allegiance with him. From now, don't do it. You take this allegiance and you take this oath if you can fulfill it. And you're ready to give your life for this. If you can give your life, if you can sacrifice everything for the sake of following this religion, only then should you take this allegiance and take this bay'ah and take this oath. This promise is only if you're serious. So it's basically life and death. You could lose all of your property. You become bankrupt. You lose everything that you have. If you're ready for that, then take this promise. Otherwise, don't take this promise. So subhanallah, the people that were there, they said, okay, this is a very serious oath and there's a lot of sacrifice that's required for this. But can you tell us, Ya Rasulullah, if we take this oath, what will we get in return? What will we get in return if we take this oath and we live by it? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, in return you'll get Jannah. In return you will get Jannah. So subhanallah, once they said this, the first companion radiallahu anhu, he put his hand in the hand of the Prophet alayhi salam. His name was As'ad bin Zurara radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And again, he showed the seriousness of the pact. He took the Prophet alayhi salam's hand and he said, O people of Medina, after so long, finally Allah has showed us who the true Prophet is. And he said, listen carefully. This promise might demand that you have to kill your chiefs. You might have to battle against your own family members. You might have to fight against your own family in defense of the Prophet ﷺ. O people of Yathrib, O people of Medina, when I'm putting my hand in the Prophet's hand, I am taking this promise that I am ready for all of those things. So be very, very careful what you promise upon. Only if you're ready for this, then take the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. Once he gave the bay'ah, all of the other companions that were there, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, they all put their hands into the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they took this allegiance. This bay'ah, this allegiance, it was known as Bay'atul Aqaba. Bay'atul Aqaba. And subhanallah, everyone that took this oath, what did the Prophet ﷺ promise them? The Prophet ﷺ promised them Jannah. So the people of Bay'atul Aqaba, inshallah, these were all people of Jannah. And subhanallah, after this happened, there were some shayateen, there were some jinnat, that obviously they were with shaitan and they disliked the Bay'atul Aqaba. They disliked that now the Prophet ﷺ, he had allegiance, he had support, all the way in Medina. So this jinn started shouting in the streets of Mecca. The jinn started shouting, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he has friends now, he has companions, he has people that have pledged allegiance to him. O Quraysh, beware. O Quraysh, beware. And the little jinn gave this announcement, and the Quraysh, they found out about this. So they started looking, they started persecuting, they started torturing once again. And subhanallah, the people of Medina, they went back. The Prophet ﷺ, he had also sent with them Mus'ab bin Umair radiyallahu anhu, who was a very prominent companion, young man, and was very enthusiastic. So he was in Medina and he was giving da'wah to the people, calling them towards Islam. And once he was there were two people, Usayd bin Hudayr and Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiyallahu anhum. These were the two leaders in Medina Munawwara. When they heard that Mus'ab bin Umair is calling people towards Islam, these two leaders became angry. And they said, Muhammad ﷺ all the way there in Mecca, and you're making people here follow his religion? The Quraysh are already upset at him. Now you're making people here follow that religion. You must stop this right away. So Usayd bin Hudayr, he came to Mus'ab bin Umair to confront him and to challenge him and to tell him, you need to stop calling people towards this religion. So Usayd bin Hudayr, non-Muslim, he comes to Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu to tell him, you have to stop doing this da'wah, stop calling people towards Islam. Remember, this is in Medina. So as he comes, Mus'ab bin Umair, he says, look, You're the leader of your tribe. You're a man of aql. You're a man of knowledge. Why don't you just listen to what we have to say? And then you can decide if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. And remember, the Quran and the power of the Quran, especially for these people, because they were well versed in the Arabic language. When the Quran would hit their ears, it would penetrate their hearts right away. Usayd bin Hudayr, he listened to a few verses from the Quran. He accepted Islam right there and he became a Muslim. Then Mus'ab told him, why don't you go to your friend Sa'ad? Explain to him also the reality and the truth of these verses. The reality and the truth of the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Usayd bin Hudayr goes to Sa'ad radiyallahu anhu, sits with him, speaks with him. He also accepts Islam. And subhanallah, these two leaders, they then go to their tribes. And they say, oh, our tribes, listen carefully. We are Muslims. If you want to have anything to do with us, you must also become Muslim. Otherwise, if you're not a Muslim, we have nothing to do with you. We're not going to protect you. We're not going to look after you. There's no relationship between us. And subhanallah, they were such leaders. Their community loved them so much. They said, if you have accepted Islam, Islam is probably a good thing. Both of their tribes, all of them accepted Islam. So subhanallah, now in Medina, you have two entire tribes. You have the 70 people from the Bay'atul Aqaba. The land in Medina is now very, very fertile. Lots of Muslims, lots of love for Islam. Leadership is also loving Islam. Now in Makkah, what's the situation? Beatings, persecution, torture. So guess what happens next? It only makes sense. The next step is what? The people of Medina, they say, look, we are all Muslims here. We love you, Ya Rasulullah. We've taken the bay'ah, we've taken the pledge, we will protect you. Life is not safe for you or for the Muslims there in Makkah. It only makes sense. You come to Medina, we will take care of you. This will be the land of Islam. So Allahu Akbar, at this moment, the hijrah began. Some of the companions, they started going towards Medina Munawwara. The first muhajir, the first man to make hijrah from Makkah to Medina. Who was the first muhajir? Come on guys, Masjid Muhajireen. This is our masjid. Who was the first muhajir? Abu Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Abu Salama, he was the first one who migrated. Abu Salama al-Makhzumi. He came from Makkah, he migrated to Medina. And when he made intention to migrate, subhanallah, they stopped him from going with his family. Salama radiyallahu anha, who was his wife, they stopped her. And some of the narrations mention that they beat her. They took the son as hostage. And Abu Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was commanded to continue his journey. He went on the hijrah by himself. Imagine the pain that he feels, have to separate from his family. And subhanallah, only later was he able to eventually be reunited with his wife and his family, after some time when more people started going for the hijrah. So subhanallah, even the migration, now it's difficult. Because the Quraysh, they don't want people to leave. They don't want people to go to Medina, because they know once people go to Medina, Islam is going to become very, very strong. So they were trying to keep the Muslims in Makkah so they could torture them, so they could hit them, so they could beat them. So at any time they would find out somebody's going for hijrah, they would stop them right away. They would hold them back. They would do whatever they can to stop them from the hijrah. And subhanallah, there was one companion, radiyallahu anhu, his name was Suhaib al-Rumi, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He came from outside. He was not an Arab. He came from the Roman Empire. He accepted Islam and he was living in Makkah. And subhanallah, he was a very, very good businessman. So he made a lot of money in Makkah. And the Quraysh, when they found out that Suhaib al-Rumi, radiyallahu anhu, he wants to go for hijrah and he wants to leave to Medina. So what did they say? They said, Ya Suhaib, you've come to Makkah from outside, from Rome. You became a good businessman. You took all our money. You benefited from our economy. Right? You benefited from our economy. You benefited from our trade. You became such a rich man. Now you're leaving to Medina. We're not going to let you go. We're going to fight you. We're not going to allow you to leave. And it's mentioned They came and they took Suhaib radiallahu anhu. They usurped all of his wealth. They took all of his money. And they said, we're not going to let you leave. We're going to keep fighting and battling against you. Allahu Akbar. Suhaib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, Ya ma'ashara Quraysh, O people of the Quraysh, if it's the money that you're after and it's the wealth that you're after, let's make a deal. Leave me that I migrate to Medina Munawwara, and all of my money, all of my wealth, whatever that you've taken, it's all for you. I'll leave it, you take it all. They said, okay. Subhanallah, Suhaib gave all of his wealth, everything that he owned, he gave it to them. What was more beloved to him? To go for the hijrah and be in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahu Akbar. He came to Medina Munawwara literally with nothing but the clothes on his back. Completely empty, nothing, bankrupt. And Allahu Akbar, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam heard about his story, what did the Prophet alayhi salam say? Rabiha Suhaybun, Rabiha Suhaybun. Allahu Akbar. O Suhaib, you have profited. O Suhaib, you have profited. Yeah, your pocket is empty. Your pockets are empty. There's nothing there. There's no dollars. There's no dirham. There's no dinar. But you have profited in the akhirah. Your bank balance in the akhirah, it's full. It's brimming. You have gotten the best of the akhirah, inshaAllah. And Allahu Akbar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verses in the Quran. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. From amongst the people are those, they sell themselves in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. From amongst people are those, they sell themselves for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Suhaib, he sold everything that he had for the pleasure of Allah and to go for the migration. And subhanallah, some of the people, they would be shackled, they would be imprisoned. Two of the people, Hisham and Ayash, they were imprisoned when they found out that they're going to go for hijrah. Subhanallah, it's mentioned about them that the people of the Quraysh told them, your mother, she will not comb her hair, she will not eat, she will not drink, and she's going to sit in the hot sun of Makkah if you go for the hijrah. He said, really? Okay, I have to go talk to my mom then. The Quraysh were just lying. So when the people got on their camels and they went to go see the mother, right away the Quraysh came, imprisoned them, shackled them down. And subhanallah, it's mentioned, these two people that were imprisoned, only many years later, they were rescued. Because the people, they came back to Makkah, they got some news, they found out there's a woman who's been bringing them food to help them survive. And subhanallah, that woman showed the Muslims where they were. And Allahu Akbar, they were in a place completely abandoned. The place had no roof. And these guys were just shackled there. Nobody was there at all. But only many years later, they were eventually freed and they migrated to Medina Munawwara. So subhanallah, you can understand, migration was not a joke. Number one, even going on the journey itself. Right? Many of us, mashallah, we've been for Hajj and Umrah. We've been from Makkah to Medina, Medina to Makkah. It's a long drive. It's hard drive with AC and with ease. In a bus, it's easy. And it's still a little bit, you get tired, right? Now imagine that whole journey on a camel. You know, in the hot desert sun. No AC, no nothing. The sun is directly on your face. Very difficult journey. So the journey itself is difficult. And secondly, to leave Makkah without getting caught, that's also difficult. They have spies, they're detecting, they're watching. They don't want anyone to leave Makkah. So the hijrah was a moment of intense sacrifice. And subhanallah, respected listeners, this is why our Islamic calendar, it begins from where? It begins from the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? The first year in our Islamic calendar is when? The hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the reason why is because this hijrah, full of sacrifice, full of complete, fida, just giving yourself for the sake of Allah, it eventually led to, finally what? A little bit of peace and ease for the Muslim ummah. Which again is a great indication. Peace and ease and happiness and contentment. It's a result of what? Sacrifice. always in this ummah, what has caused goodness, what was the source of goodness, was qurbani, was sacrifice. Anytime people gave mujahada, they sacrificed for the sake of Allah, that's when the fruits were eventually came out into fruition, was when people gave sacrifice. Subhanallah, it's mentioned, of all of the people that went for hijrah, most of the people are sneaking out, most of the people are running, they're going in secrecy and privacy. However, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he went for hijrah, he didn't hide and he didn't escape and he didn't run. He told all of the Quraysh, Ya ma'ashara Quraysh, I'm going for hijrah, see you guys. You can't do anything to me, I'll chop your head off. Umar radiallahu anhu, when he went for hijrah, he didn't escape and he didn't run. He's telling everyone, bye bye, I'll see you, I'm going to Medina Munawwara. And not only did he go for hijrah by himself, he took 20 Muslims with him as well. So all 20 people that were with Umar, they were at ease, nobody could stop them and nobody could say anything to them. The Prophet ﷺ, on purpose, he stayed back. He didn't go for the hijrah immediately, he stayed back. Why? Because he was waiting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically gives him permission that, O Nabi of Allah, now you go for the hijrah. Until that permission did not come, the Prophet ﷺ stayed in Makkah. He stayed back in Makkah. Now during this time, the Quraysh and the mushrikeen of Makkah, they had a very, very serious meeting in the city hall, the Darul Nadwa. And when they had this meeting, they called all the elders. And the purpose of this meeting, what will we do with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and what will we do with these Muslims? Because now it's getting too much. And if they escape to Medina, they're eventually gonna cause harm to all of us here, because they're gonna get too much power in Medina. At this meeting, there was a man, he was known as Shaykhun Najdiyun, a shaykh that has come from Najd, an old chief, an elder who has come all the way from Najd. And subhanallah, this elder who made himself seem like he's an elder man from Najd, this was actually the shaitan, who came in disguise because he wanted a certain plan against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So people started giving their opinions, and they said, look, if we exile him, if we banish him to Medina, that's good. Because now in Makkah we'll be in peace. We don't have to worry about the Muslims, and we don't have to worry about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They'll all go to Medina, and Makkah will be free. We can worship what we want. All the Muslims will go there. When one person gave this opinion, the shaitan raised his voice. And he said, no, don't do this. This is not a good idea. He's going to get people and he's going to get followers in Medina. Eventually he's going to become so powerful, he's going to come back to Makkah and he's going to take over all of you. So banishing him and exiling him, this is not going to do any good. Next person gave their opinion, and what did they say? They said, okay, we'll just imprison him, lock him up, put him in jail, and for as long as, give him a life sentence, just keep him in prison, and he's not going to be able to influence anybody because he'll be stuck in jail. Again, that shaitan who was disguised as a human being, he said, this is also a bad idea. Why? Because eventually, those people that love him so much and are followers of him, they will continuously, they're going to try and get him out of jail. We can't do that. They're going to continuously fight us to try and free him. So eventually, subhanallah, Abu Jahl gave the third opinion. And what did he say? He said, there's only one thing left. We will get a young, strong man from every tribe. Each one of them, they will go and they will jointly assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. Na'udhu billah. And the reason why they said this, because now, if every person from the different tribes was involved, now the Muslims cannot fight against everyone. You can't fight against every tribe. So make everybody involved. So now that we assassinate him, all the tribes are together in this, the Muslims can't say anything to us. And when this opinion was given, the shaitan said, هَذَا هُوَ الرَّأِي. This is the good opinion. This is what's going to help us. This is what we should do and what we should implement. Subhanallah. The statement of Abu Jahl coincided exactly with the opinion of the shaitan. So look at that. You see the inner evil of that person, the inner evil and the inner khabathat of these people, exactly in line with the shayateen. And so this is what they had planned, to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. And many of us know eventually what happened when Rasulullah ﷺ was finally given the permission to migrate. He told Abu Bakr Siddiq, who was still there, about the migration. And Allahu Akbar, the first thing that Abu Bakr Siddiq said, he said, As-suhbata ya Rasulullah. Can I accompany you? Can I join you? Can I be the one that's going to go on the journey with you? And the Prophet ﷺ gave him permission. Abu Bakr Siddiq and Rasulullah ﷺ, together, they went for the hijrah. And Allahu Akbar, on that same night, the Prophet ﷺ, he told Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu to sleep in his bed. Because Allah informed him, the people are going to try and assassinate him. They're not going to harm Ali radiallahu anhu. But if it's the Prophet ﷺ, they're going to try and assassinate him. So the Prophet ﷺ, he told Ali radiallahu anhu, you stay in the bed. The people surrounded the house. The people surrounded the house and they were waiting. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he took some dust and he threw it and he scattered it. وَجَعَلْنَا مِن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. He recited these ayat, which in a nutshell it means, we put a barrier in front of their eyes. We put a barrier in front of them, a barrier behind them. We covered their eyes, they're not able to see anything. Rasulullah ﷺ exited the house, none of them were able to see. And eventually when Ali radiallahu anhu came out in the morning, they took him, they said, where's Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam? We thought you're him. They took him, they imprisoned him, they took him to the Kaaba. And they kept him there as a hostage. And subhanallah, eventually when things got better, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was released, he also migrated to Medina Munawwara. So now understand the situation. You have the Prophet ﷺ and you have Abu Bakr Siddiq. They're both migrating now. And the Quraysh, what do they want to do at this point? What's their job? They want to kill the Prophet ﷺ. They want to kill Abu Bakr Siddiq, anyone that's with him. So the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr, what did they do? They made a good plan. Instead of going north towards Medina, instead they first went south towards Yemen. Instead of going north, because obviously the Quraysh are going to know what? They want to go to Medina. Medina is north. They're going to send all the people on exactly that pathway. So first they went south towards Yemen so that the Quraysh, they'll get off track. So 5 miles, Rasulullah ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq, they went south. And eventually they went to the Ghar Thawr. And subhanallah, the amazing incident is mentioned about the Ghar Thawr, the cave of Thawr, where Abu Bakr Siddiq, he first goes inside, and in the walls of the cave, there are little holes, right? And those could be insects, could be scorpions, could be any types of harmful animals. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he takes the pieces from his clothes and he fills each of the little holes, fills it up, plugs it, so that no scorpion or snake or harmful animal can come out. And Allahu Akbar, there were still some holes that were left, but there's nothing that could plug them in. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, he puts his foot, he puts his arm, he puts his body part to cover those holes. And the Prophet ﷺ, he lays his head on the thigh of Abu Bakr Siddiq. Rasulullah ﷺ is resting. And subhanallah, during this period, while the Prophet is resting, the scorpion or the harmful insect or animal, whatever it was, inside of that hole, it bit Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And subhanallah, Abu Bakr Siddiq, he wants to scream out in pain, he wants to jump up, but Rasulullah ﷺ is resting on his thigh. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, with so much of pain, he holds himself and he doesn't move at all. He sits there quietly, holding himself back. I do not want to disturb the sleep of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah, look at the love and mahabbah that he had. And subhanallah, eventually the people caught up. They were right near the entrance of the cave. Right near the entrance of the cave. All they had to do is go down and look. They would have saw that the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq are right there. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, he's whispering to Rasulullah ﷺ, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, all they have to do is look down, they'll catch us, we're dead. If they just look down, that's it, we're dead. What did Rasulullah ﷺ say? Ya Abu Bakr, ma dhannuka bi ithnain, Allahu thalithuhuma. Oh Abu Bakr, tell me, what do you say about two people? The third of them is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do you say about two people? The third of them is Allah. Don't worry about them. They look or they don't look. Allah is the one protecting us. They can't do anything. And subhanallah, it's mentioned during the time, 3 days that they were in this cave. There were people that would come and they would bring food. The shepherd of Abu Bakr Siddiq would come and bring milk. And subhanallah, the daughter of Abu Bakr, Asma binti Abi Bakr radiallahu anha, she would tie up the provision for food. And when she came, she was trying to tie the food up to put it on the camel. And subhanallah, they didn't even have enough provisions, there was no rope. So you know they used to wear like these waistbands. I think they call them like qamarband or something like that. It's like a waistband, you tie yourself up and it helps you stay like firm and strong. Right? I think back home they wear this type of thing. So she took her waistband, the qamarband, and she cut it in half. One of them, she used it for herself again, and the second one, she used it to tie up the food. And subhanallah, because of that, she was given this title, Dhatun Nitaqain, the woman of two ropes, the woman of two pieces of cloth. That became her title forever. Subhanallah, even after she passed away, she's known as Dhatun Nitaqain. All because of this one amal that she did. She gave food in the initial stages of hijrah to the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And as they left the Ghar Thawr, they took a certain route which was on the, towards the shore. It's not a common route. They would come across different people and they would ask, who is this man? They would ask Abu Bakr Siddiq, who's this person that you're with? And Abu Bakr would always say, he is my guide. So apparently his meaning was what? This is like the tour guide. He's showing me the directions. He's showing me the way. But really what he meant was what? This is my guide. He guides me out of darkness, of kufr and shirk, and he guides me to Islam. This is my guide. This is my real guide. So this is what he would say. And subhanallah, different stories are mentioned in the Seerah about 2 or 3 incidents that took place as they're going to Medina Munawwara. One of them is the incident of Suraqa bin Malik. Suraqa bin Malik, he was the only person of the Quraysh that eventually tracked down the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq. He found out where they were. He found out where they are. He was following with precision, even though they were all the way on the shore pathway to reach Medina. So he tracked them down, he saw them at the distance, he got on his horse, and subhanallah, the moment he gets on his horse, the horse falls down. He tries again, he jumps back on his horse, horse falls down. He gets a little bit closer, the feet of his horse gets buried inside of the sand. The horse is stuck, it can't move. Now he's digging. Eventually he takes them out. And he says, subhanallah, when I saw this, that every time I tried to get close to them, I would fail in my mission. Either the horse would fall down, either the feet would get stuck in the sand. One thing after the other, something would block me from reaching them. He said, at that moment, I knew in my heart, whatever Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq, whatever mission they are on, they're protected by Allah and Allah is going to make their mission successful. Subhanallah. He understood that from that time. There was a woman by the name of Ma'bad radiyallahu anha, and she had a little place where travelers, they could stop by, musafireen would stop there, and she would give milk, she would give water, she would give a little bit of provision for all the musafireen, because she lived on the way where a lot of people would travel by. So Ma'bad was there, Abu Bakr Siddiq and the Prophet ﷺ, they passed by. And she said, I'm so sorry, we don't have anything. There's a drought, there's no rain. The animals are all dry, look at them. So skinny and there's nothing. Very, very sorry. I wish I could give you guys some milk and give you something. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, don't worry, that's okay. Show me where's your goat. And it was an old, weak, skinny, frail goat. Rasulullah ﷺ came, he read something, he read the name of Allah, he touched this goat, and all of the sudden, all of the milk starts flowing. And subhanallah, the Prophet ﷺ took the first glass of milk, he gave it to Ma'bad. He said, this is for you. Abu Bakr Siddiq and the Prophet ﷺ, they started drinking the milk to their fill, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of them. Eventually, 14 years after Nubuwwat. How many years? 14 years after Nubuwwat, after the revelation of the Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam finally enters Quba, the outskirts of Medina, the place called Quba. The Prophet alayhi salam enters. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam finally came towards Quba, every day the people of Medina, the people of Quba, all the people in the outskirts, they would stand on the rooftops, they would climb up the trees, and they would look. When is Muhammad ﷺ coming? When is he coming? They would go out and they would look. And subhanallah, on that day when the Prophet ﷺ came, he came a little bit in the afternoon, where the sun would come out. So the people had already went inside of their homes. There was one person who went on his roof, he was looking for something, and in the distance, he saw there few people walking. Oh, that must be Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he made i'lan, and he told all of the people, this man that you've been waiting for, he's finally here. I can see in the distance he's walking. And subhanallah, all of Quba, all of Medina, all you could hear is the shouts of takbir. All you could hear is the shouts of takbir. And all the people, they came out of their homes, they came out and they went forward outside into the desert to welcome the Prophet ﷺ. And subhanallah, it's mentioned, when they first came, Abu Bakr Siddiq was senior man, very elderly. And the many people in Medina and in Quba, they never saw the Prophet ﷺ. So when they came out, many people started doing salam to Abu Bakr Siddiq. Oh, this is the Prophet, mashallah, Allahu Akbar. And Abu Bakr Siddiq, very smart man. So he said, oh, the people are thinking I'm the Prophet. So he took a shawl, he took a chadar, and he started shading Rasulullah ﷺ. So now when the people saw that he's doing khidmat for this man, this is the Prophet ﷺ. So now when he did that, now all the people that were there, they would see and they would say, okay, this is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And subhanallah, the children, the elderly, all the people, they're coming out and they're reciting, طَلَعَ الْبَدْرُ عَلَيْنَا. The full moon has finally come upon us. This full moon that we've been waiting for, the light of guidance, finally he has arrived to us. وَجَبَ الشُّكْرُ عَلَيْنَا. Gratitude and shukr to Allah has become wajib upon us. The Prophet has finally come within our midst. Now Allahu Akbar, the Prophet ﷺ is finally there. Masjid Quba, the first Jumu'ah Salah in Islam, in Masjid Quba. Of course, I said Masjid Quba, which means the Prophet ﷺ, that was the first masjid, was Masjid Quba. And the first Jummah Salah, 100 Muslims prayed with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Imagine the feeling, respected listeners, that before this, they're praying in the dark. They're praying in private. They're scared maybe someone's going to see us. They're scared maybe someone will hear. Someone's going to come inside. They'll come with a sword. They're going to torture us. They'll imprison us. Finally, for the first time, open Salatul Jumu'ah. 100 Muslims. They're praying with ease. No worry of anyone coming to disturb us. And subhanallah, the Prophet ﷺ let his camel loose. He said, wherever the camel stops, that's the place where we're going to build the masjid. Camel eventually stopped, and the foundation was laid for the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Masjid Al-Nabawi. And subhanallah, you can imagine the atmosphere. All of the people, they're taking the bricks one by one. Everybody is helping, everyone is building. They're building this masjid, of the Prophet ﷺ. They're taking the mud, they're moving things around. And while they're building, they're all singing together. Allahumma la aisha illa aishul akhirah. Allahumma arhamil ansara wal muhajira. Imagine how beautiful. They're all building together and they're saying, Oh Allah, there is no life except the life of the akhirah. Oh Allah, there's no life except the life of the akhirah. And imagine just yesterday, these people didn't even believe in life after death. Now they're singing together. Ya Allah, there's no life except the life of the akhirah. So Ya Allah, have mercy on the Ansar and also on the Muhajireen. And subhanallah, eventually the adhan was called. Bilal radiallahu anhu called the adhan. Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Abdi Rabbihi, he saw in his dream that a person is calling the words of the adhan. So he informed the Prophet ﷺ. They were asking, how should we call people to the salah? With a horn, with a fire, with a bell? What are the different ways we could do it? And subhanallah, Abdullah bin Zayd, Allah showed him the dream where the adhan was being called. So this eventually, Bilal radiallahu anhu became the mu'adhin. The adhan started being called, Allahu Akbar, in the open, in the public, the name of Allah, in the fida, in the atmosphere, publicly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name was being called. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made a system for the people in Medina Munawwara. Every muhajir that came, they would be integrated into a family of the Ansar. This is called mu'akhat, from the word akhun. Akhun means brother. Mu'akhat, to mutually make someone a brother. So they would be included in that family of the Ansar. The Ansar would have to, Ansar means the people of Medina. That's their home, right? They're used to it, they're used to, they have their family, they have their businesses, they have their jobs. But these Muhajireen, they came all the way from Makkah, now they lost everything. So each Muhajir that came from Makkah was paired, was joined with a family from the Ansar. And like this was to make life much, much easier for the people. SubhanAllah, in the first initial days, the Prophet ﷺ stayed with Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. He had a 2-story house. And right away when they came in, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu, he said, "O Prophet of Allah, you stay on top. Right? You stay on top and we'll stay on the bottom." He said, "Why?" He said, "I cannot. How can we be on top of the Prophet ﷺ? This is against adab, this is against etiquettes." You know how much they loved the Prophet ﷺ, how much they respected him. They said, "We can't be on top while you're on bottom." Right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, "I will be going in and out a lot. People will be coming to visit. It'll be an inconvenience if I'm on top. So it's okay." And subhanAllah, the whole night, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he didn't sleep because they were so worried that the Prophet ﷺ is on bottom. The next day he told Rasulullah ﷺ, then eventually they switched spots. So now, at this stage which we have reached, the Muslims are now in Medina. The first Jummah took place. The Masjid of the Prophet ﷺ has been built. And people are happy that there's freedom. Finally, after 14 years, there's freedom of religion. We can practice openly. There's nobody going to stop us now. However, it came with its challenges. And what were those challenges? Muhajireen left their homes. The atmosphere and the air of Medina, many of them became sick. They would get very, very bad fevers, right? And now you're away from home, you're homesick, you have your business, you have how you're going to live. These were some of the issues and the challenges that the Muslims faced at that time. And subhanAllah, it's mentioned, Abu Bakr and Bilal, both of them, they got sick. And together they're lying down and they're reciting poetry about Makkah Mukarramah. You know? And they're talking about the valleys of Makkah. If only I could be surrounded with the idkhir and the jalil. You know, these were 2 shrubs which had a very beautiful smell. If only we can be surrounded by those. If only we can go back to the mountains of Shama and Tafil. You know, these were the mountains in Makkah. So think about it, you know, they're sick, they're having fever, they're laying down and they're reciting this poetry to each other. So although there was freedom, still had its challenges. Life was very, very difficult, especially for the Muhajireen when they entered Medina Munawwara. This was the next phase in the life of the Prophet ﷺ and the next phase for the strengthening of Islam. Inshallah, from here we will continue next week. Before we conclude, inshallah, one important sunnah that we should bring alive, inshallah, within our lives, the sunnah of meeting people. The sunnah of how we should meet with people, right? So number one, when the Prophet ﷺ would meet with anyone, he would smile at them. So right away, the first thing, the coming of Rasulullah ﷺ would bring happiness. The moment you see his face, it brings happiness. And subhanAllah, I know this is a little bit off topic, but some of the companions radiyallahu anhum, They were seen very, very saddened and sitting and very quiet. Prophet ﷺ asked, why are you so upset? He said, Ya Rasulullah, the one thing that I look forward to every day is to see your face, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because the moment I see your face, all of my worries, all of my gham, all of everything just disappears. Because of the blessing of your face and your smile. And the reason why I'm worried is that in Jannah, you will be in such a high position, right? You'll be in the Firdaus, in the highest positions. I don't know if I will enter Jannah. If I do enter Jannah, I'm not going to be at your darajah. So, Ya Rasulullah, I'm worried and I'm concerned. What am I going to do in Jannah? I'm not going to be able to see you. Subhanallah. This was the concern and the worry that Sahaba had. They're worried, how am I going to see the Prophet ﷺ? But again, this goes back to, because the Prophet ﷺ would meet people in a very beautiful and good way. So, the Prophet ﷺ would smile. He would say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Make your warmth, your happiness, bring that to the person that you're meeting. And one of the important things is, especially when we enter our homes, we forget about this a lot. Very, very quickly we open the door. Is the food ready? Huh? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Man, I just came from work, I'm hungry. This is not how. Enter with happiness, enter with salam, enter with a smile, and inshallah this will be a source of great barakah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.